this is, I don't want to give away anything.
Yeah.
I've been cautioned about that. But a lovely story. I hope you enjoy it. Ashley Crockett.
Okay. Can you all hear me?
Oh, yeah.
All right. I am nervous, I have to tell you that. And this is a tale of adventure on the high seas. And in honor of that project, I wore a sail. And please bear with me, because it's really hard to keep out all the minutia, because it's all important to me, because it's my life. So it's pretty arbitrary to just begin at a certain point and then end at a certain point and try to stick with the flow. So please bear with me. Now, this is mainly about the day that we almost landed on this sailing trip from France, a town called Saint-Gilles-Croix-de-Vie, to New York. So I sailed. Here's the backstory. In '81, I went to study in Paris, and I ended up staying in France for about 14 months. And it was way time to come home. It was way past it. My student visa had expired. I was sick and tired of living on a shoestring, and it was time to go home. And there was this great coincidence. My cousin who was living there had a friend who was putting together a crew to sail to the United States. And this was the first time in my life I'd ever had the opportunity to get on a sailboat that was going my way. And, where it wasn't a situation of somebody said, come on my boat, and, so you won't have any place to run or any place to hide. So I paid my way. I contributed to the food and the bottled water for emergencies, and bought fleece jumpsuits for the North Sea to sleep in as pajamas, and a couple of turquoise blue bikini, that kind of thing for day wear. And, it was just amazing. We went up about a week early to wait for the boat to be made ready. And the captain's name was Dominique. And Dominique was tall, dark, handsome, and very athletic. And he made his living as a writer-reviewer of Big Boys Play Toys. So cars, motorcycles, boats, ships, whatever. If it went fast, he would take it for a spin and then sell his opinion of it to various magazines. Now, I was 28 years old, and I could not help but be really, really impressed. And so the next thing that I did while we were waiting for the boat to get ready was I kind of made this impulsive move, and we got to know each other in a biblical sense. And you know how that goes. So obviously, before we ever left the dock of St. Gilles, we were already kind of losing interest in each other. But we sailed off into the sunset, literally. With the spinnaker billowing out in front of us, filled with wind, pregnant, and the sun was setting, and the light was coming in from the sides, slanted, sunset light, tranquil water. It was just gloriously romantic. But when it got dark, a squall came up, and the water got really choppy, and the next thing is that the boat was rocking hard from side to side. And I'm a native of landlocked Colorado, and I do not know a winch from a wench, Barely. I mean, that's what I learned. But here it was, and every time the boat would rock, I would think, oh God, we're going to take on water, and it's just going to sink right down, right? And I was terrified. Then it would come up and go rock the other way, and I was like, oh God, and things were flashing before my face, my eyes, memories of my life. And I didn't even know that there was such a thing as a keel that would bring the boat, there was a counterweight to right the boat. That I watched, and I was terrified. It was a crew of the three of them and me as a passenger. And so it was the captain, Dominique, the first mate, Jean-Michel, who was a guy who sort of hitchhiked from boat to boat on cruise. So he was kind of a mercenary, loved to travel the world. So he was there, and he really, by the way, knew how to get along on a boat, as I did not. He didn't talk. He just didn't talk. So, and then the third guy was this Parisian businessman who was a friend of the captain's that he knew from just shore sailing, not the big adventure. But Dominique had actually sailed all by himself from France to the United States solo. So that was kind of reassuring. He was qualified. And he was delivering this sailboat, which was 42 feet long. And it was probably from there to there, really. And here we are in this sailboat in the open ocean. And I can tell you that for once in my life, I got my true place in the world. I'm in a speck on a speck in the middle of, right? Anyway, so our first, I kind of gave up, I gave up after that first night because it was just too scary for me and I couldn't really stand it. How I handled that was I went below and ate about a triple dose of the seasickness pills and just waited for death. And, I just was hopeless. So I couldn't help and I couldn't speak French and I didn't know anything about sailing and I still basically don't. So, anyway, it took the first leg of the trip. We skimmed past San Juan de Compostela and went ashore for dinner. That was one nice night. And then we went to the Azores, which are these Portuguese islands about a third of the way over. And we stayed overnight there. But even before that, things had started to go kind of sour between me and Dominique. And he'd say the sky is gray. And I'd say, no, I think it's blue. And it went on like that, right? And Jean-Michel didn't say anything. And then in Porta, in the Azores, the businessman left. So it was just the two of them and moi, okay, on this boat. And then the next part of the trip took about 3 weeks. And it's, for me, it's like this Rutger Hauer in the last scene of Blade Runner. You just can't believe the things I saw. It was really, it gives my life meaning to this moment. When we were out long enough on the way to Horta that I could smell land before I could see it. It was, like this sea is kind of astringent, slightly spoogy, and then land is dirt and it's plant rot, and you can just smell the fecundity of it. And that was amazing to me. And some of the other wonderful things that I saw were like, we'd see a pod of dolphins coming from the farthest point on the horizon, and they would leap and play and jump all the way to as far as I could see on the farthest point that way. And sometimes they'd come right up to the boat and surf on the bow wave and kind of just shoot up into the air. It was like this full-throated expression of joy, to see these dolphins. And there were storms. There was a time where one of the bladders that held our drinking water, which was odious, may I tell you, odious, like saturated with the taste and smell of plastic. And we had to have all these French syrups to put in it to make it potable, right? And I learned to brush my teeth with salt water. That was kind of an adventure. I also learned that once you get salt water in your clothes, that they never ever dry out again. And one of the things I cherish are like the taste of the apples. We had apples on board, and that was the only thing that didn't come out of a can, except for this ham that lasted a month. And it was the only thing that wasn't secured when the leather got rough, and this thing, bang, nobody's business, And one time we were in a calm in the doldrums, and the sea filled up with these little balloons of turquoise blue and bubblegum pink. And I caught one and pulled it into the boat, and put it in a bucket of water, and it had long purple tendrils. And these were Portuguese men of war, but you would never think it to look at them. I mean, they look like kitties' toys, right? And, another time we were sailing at night. We would sail by day and then motor at night in a set direction. And all of us would take like a 3-hour watch and make sure we didn't run into anything or whatever, just to have somebody alert. Now, and one time I thought, what's going on here? That wave just sort of glowed. Am I having a flashback? And then suddenly the whole sea turned white with this fluorescent algae. So, and the boat would churn it up, and you could see, like I saw one time, this outline of the fish. It was just black in all of this whiteness. And that was a miraculous thing, I think, to see. And flying fish, I thought flying fish eggs, we were just sort of sushi delivered the hard way. It was just wonderful. And I saw a pod of whales with these big round fronts. I don't even know what kind they are. But, it was just an amazing thing. And so, lots of adventures. And then the last day, what turned out to be our last day, this trip took a full month. We left June 4th. And it turned out to be our last day. And we were in a dead calm. And it was all driving us kind of insane because we could see these 3-tiered sport fishing boats just zipping around us, going out to sea, and they were just like that. And we had 1 liter of gas left. So and the rule was we sailed during the day and kept the gas for night. So there we were, and we were stuck. And some of these key things that I didn't tell you a little earlier on about Dominique, not only did we begin to bicker, but before we actually, fell apart completely, he told me one night how easy it was to get away with murder on the high seas. This is a pillow talk moment. And he says, you just go up there while Will's on watch and you push him over, and the next person who gets up for the watch assumes that the other guy had fallen over while he was taking a leak, because evidently that doesn't happen, right? Now, just that this guy's mind went that way, really nervous. And then, a few nights later, he told me post-coitally that, he's had this fantasy about strangling or suffocating a woman. Now that was it, man. I was done sleeping with this guy. Okay? I was done. And then I really started to hate him in earnest, and all his little Frenchiness too. So let me tell you, like 3 weeks into this thing, I was so over everything French, I can tell you. Anyway, so here it was, the last day. We're in the middle of this calm, and all these sport boats are just zipping around, like they have this, like mosquitoes, like they have a bloody fuel pipeline to haul whatever they need, right? And so Dominique decides that he has to impress everybody, and he sunbathes naked and conditions his hair with coconut oil. That entertains him for a while, and finally he gets as antsy as the rest of us, and he decides, well, we'll just go for it. We're going to turn on the motor and just go to Long Island, right? We're still in the Atlantic. And the motor won't turn. That's a problem, right? So he goes down, he dives down to find out what's wrong, and then he comes back up, and he's kind of on the side of the boat like this, explaining that the rope or the cord for this self-inflating lifeboat has gone down one of the drain holes and wrapped itself around the motor. And that we have about 10 inches before this thing will just, the ripcord will pull, and the whole thing will self-inflate and break up the stern and break up the boat. He was delivering the boat for sale to the vice president of L'Oreal, a little company you might have heard of, right? Because the last owner, it was too fast for his previous owner. Anyway, so he's delivering this boat that's been sold. Main thing, not to wreck it, right? And there we are, we're in some kind of fishy water, right? So he tells us that, and then Jean-Michel says, we noticed that there are a couple of fins kind of lolling around about 20 feet away. And Jean-Michel quietly, he says, Dominique, there are a couple of sharks behind you. And Dominique is like, seriously, right? Because he doesn't want to be, it's a nanosecond of doubt because he doesn't want to be made a fool of with his own dad, right? And Jean-Michel, he just nods. And Dominique is like, up in the boat, like he's never been wet, right? He's in the boat, upright. And he drops his fancy American brass-handled buck knife in the process, right? So he spends the next hour in the galley wetting our hand-cutting knife till it is like surgical grade sharp, okay? And he's getting his courage up, and he goes down and he cuts the cord, and we start up the motor, and we try to hail these fishing boats, right? And that's kind of my job. It's not going well. It's not going well. But finally, somebody does stop. And here's this other problem. We were totally lost. We had this nautical map that only had these big, broad land masses. And no cities, no towns, no marinas, no nothing. We just knew that was Long Island over there, right? So, my job was to figure out where we could get some gas, and these people, and finally the guy says, somebody stops, and he says, well, it's, about 10 minutes that way, which is probably true if you have a full tank of gas and you're used to going about 50 miles an hour. But we were more on the 25, or however many knots that is. Anyway, so he decides we can't risk it, and we motor straight up to the coast of Long Island, okay? And there is no port, there is no dock, there is no marina, there's nothing but, the shoreline is mostly buttressed with riprap, big boulders, big sharp boulders. But there's this little stretch of sand. And so, Jean-Michel and I get in the air inflatable lifeboat with about 7 gas cans of all these various sizes. And so Jean-Michel is rowing, I'm sitting in my last clean pair of disco jeans, waiting to walk, I'm getting ready for my job as the ambassadress, right? And the gas station funder. So, wouldn't you know it, here we are on this last little, road up to shore, a little stretch of sand, and we have seen from a distance these gas signs, like Gulf, big, how they are on those big tall poles. Well, we could see those. I mean, it was like, we wanted that stuff. So, anyway, here's this last little wave, and it dumps us completely, right? You're both soaking wet, drenched to the bone. And then here's Dominique, he's about 100 yards out, screaming, "Get the gas cans!" And if the tide comes up, be back in an hour, because if the tide comes up, I'm leaving. No pressure there, right? So we row back, get the gas cans, we drag the boat up, and I fell on the first motorist who came by. And I think that the look of sheer desperation that I had convinced him to stop, and he stopped and he let us soaking wet into his leather-lined Mercedes, and he drove us to and from this gas station, where I got a pack of cigarettes, and beer. We were totally out of everything. And called home to tell them that I was alive so far. And that's it. Didn't have time for a long chat. Got to get back to the boat because the guy is going to leave us. So we go, and we make it back. And so we're full of gas. And this night happened to be the 4th of July. So all along the beach, there were fires and fireworks just exploding into brilliant colors. And, you know, I'm not necessarily all that patriotic, but I was really glad to be back near America. You know, and I took it as a personal welcome home. No egocentricity there, but that's another story. Anyway, so it was just gorgeous, and I was thrilled, and I had survived. I was safely back in America. And then the clincher is the next day. We made it the long way. We could have gone from where we went to get gas, and go the northerly route to Glen Cove. But no, we had this direction. He had the directions, which were Long Island, New York Yacht Club, Glen Cove. And I was supposed to find out where we were, all that. We followed the directions and went to New York Yacht Club and motored on up at the Long Island Sound and docked safely. And we went out to dinner that first night. We were headed toward town. And this was like the icing on the cake, because we walked past a field and there were people playing baseball. Not much more American than that, guys. And guess what the name of the team was? Ashley's. And I talked the owner out of a number